up and we'll start chatting here. So first off, thank you all for coming today. This is so exciting to have you all here with us. And I think it's a great topic. You know, too often we don't really talk about how we take good care of ourselves. So I'm very excited that you all are spending this time thinking about this and talking about this with us. So welcome, welcome. There we go. All right, so just a little bit about me. I am Holly Eichner. I know whenever I go to a presentation, my first question is why is this person talking to me about this? What do they know? Why should I believe them? So I like to give you just a little bit of background on me. So I am a recreation therapist. I've been a recreation therapist now for 20 years and have spent the majority of my career working within the mental health field with addictions and mental health recovery. I currently am a lecturer at the University of Toledo. I've been there now. I'm going into my 6th or 7th year. I'm not sure. You know how it gets to be a blur. Um, so I still teach, but I still also work in the clinical setting. I work a PRN position out at Arrowhead Behavioral Health and then with ProMedica as well in their psychiatric unit. So I'm still actively involved as a therapist. I'm a graduate of the University of Toledo and working right now on a doctorate in educational psychology as well. You know, I just can't get enough of UT and getting degrees from there. So, and I'm a mom. So, as many of you, I'm balancing many things in my life. And then a quarantine came along and a pandemic, which kind of sent us all into a tailspin. And I realized as things were getting I don't want to say out of control, but feeling like they were out of our own personal controls as we were asked to stay home and information was changing daily. I noticed in myself, my anxiety and stress level changed. These topics are things I talk about all the time with patients. It's one of my favorite topics to present on. It's what I'm doing my doctoral research in. But I even noticed for myself, and I feel like I have really good coping skills and I balance all these responsibilities well, that there were many days my anxiety was pretty high, that I was feeling really stressed. So when Rocket Recharge came up again, I thought, what a great time for us all to get together and just revisit some of these things. Some of the information might be new, some might just be reminders. But either way, it's a time for us to kind of sit together and kind of refocus that taking good care of ourselves is important, that managing these things are important. I liked this quote, so I had to throw it up here. I lied and said I was busy. I was busy, but not in the way most people understand. I was busy taking deeper breaths. I was busy silencing irrational thoughts. I was busy calming a racing heart. I was busy telling myself I'm okay. Sometimes this is my busy and I will not apologize for it. In these uncertain times with everything changing, I would like us to get to that mindset that it's okay to be busy taking care of ourselves. We spend so much time caring for everybody around us. We could see a stranger on the street in distress, and we would take the time to find out what was wrong and what we could do to help. It's what we do as humans. Yet we'll allow ourselves to be in these distressful situations, and we oftentimes don't feel justified in taking the time for ourselves. So as your personal recreation therapist now, I'm writing you an order to take good care of yourself so that you can manage these difficult emotions and these challenging thoughts that are happening right now. I want to normalize it for you too, that we're all in this boat. I know that, you know, for myself, there's been days where just that feeling of uncertainty is so high. And I know we're all feeling that. So acknowledging that is the first step. So I like to always start with a breath, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. I practice deep breathing myself on a regular basis. I practice it at work. I practice it in grocery store. I practice it when I deal with my teenage daughter. The breath is a powerful tool to really help us to reset our emotional state. When we're stressed, when we're in these spaces of distress, our body takes over and our primal self kicks in. You're all familiar with that fight or flight response. It's something that happens that really is beyond our control at the moment. But the truth is if we don't take back control, we make poor decisions, and we often lead ourselves further into the stress cycle versus bringing ourselves out. One of the powerful things about the breath is that in those moments when we're feeling distressed, the simple practice of taking a deep breath in and out and in and out helps our body to realize we're safe and allows us to come back down and get back in control of our thoughts and our reactions. If you've ever taken any classes or you've read anything on deep breathing, there's a lot of instructions on how to do it. There's a lot of numbers depending on who you're reading. They'll give you the different count, 448, 568. I want you not to worry about the count of how much you're breathing in and how much you're breathing out. Because the truth is if you don't practice deep breathing on a regular basis, to breathe in for a count of 4 or 5 and then hold it, and then to breathe it out for like a count of 8 almost feels like someone's holding your head underwater. And then it feels even more distressful. And then you start the negative self-talk of, I can't even deep breathe. So we don't want to go there. We want to do the opposite thing and be really gentle with ourselves. So I like to, when I breathe, I picture a newborn baby. So if a newborn baby's laying here, their little bellies go up and down as they breathe. I want you to just focus on that motion when you breathe. I want you to take a deep breath in and let your chest fill up, let your stomach come out. We're not holding it in and looking thin here, we're breathing deep. So we breathe in, and when we breathe in through our nose, we hold it, and then we just breathe out through our mouth. If you haven't done a lot of deep breathing, I tell you, just breathe in for a count of 2 or 3. Just hold it for a beat of 1, because for some of us, holding our breath feels kind of anxiety provoking. And then breathe out for just a beat more than you were breathing in. So if I breathe in 1, 2, I hold for 1, and I breathe out 1, 2, 3. And I breathe in 1, 2, and I breathe out 1, 2, 3. The numbers help us focus our mind, but the numbers don't matter. It doesn't matter if you breathe in for 1 and out for 2. All that matters is that you're calming your mind and you're allowing that breath to come in, to fill your lungs. You're holding it for just a moment, and as you breathe out, you're pulling your abdomen back towards your spine and just fully and slowly breathing out. We breathe out for a beat more so that we don't start Lamaze breathing. It helps us to remember to slow it down and not blow out too fast. Just nice and slow and steady. For any of you who ever wake up in the middle of the night and start making lists, of all the things you have to do and all the ways you have to change the world, this is actually a really great practice too, to stop before you start making those lists or when you realize you're making the list, and just start breathing. Try to do 10 good breaths in and out. And you'd be amazed how many times you just fall back asleep. The breath can help the body to just realize I'm safe and bring us back to that great relaxed state. So now that I've talked all about it, let's just take 2 breaths together just to get centered before we talk some more. So let's go ahead, get yourself comfortable in your chair and take a nice deep breath in and out. And a nice breath in and out. So in order for us to be intentional, to take charge of what's going on with us, it's really important that we first become aware. And so we are whole body creatures. And oftentimes we don't stop to really consider all the ways that stress or anxiety manifests in ourselves. So if I can spend just a moment talking about the different domains, the different parts of ourselves, it helps me to be self-aware so I can start realizing when I have to put one of these skills in place, when I'm starting to get distressed, when I'm starting to feel anxious. Because oftentimes these negative emotions happen little by little. They just kind of build up, right? I wake up and I'm a little worried. Something's kind of itching at the back of my brain, but I just ignore it and move on with my day. And then maybe the kids are being a little rowdy and it's a little more stress on it, right? And then work is really tough. And I realize now I have a short deadline I have to meet. And the stress just builds and builds and builds. What we want to do is start being self-aware every day. And we increase that self-awareness by stopping and intentionally taking a look at ourselves. So noticing the physical change in ourselves when we're feeling stressed or anxious. Do your eating habits change? Are you going to the bathroom more or less? Do you clench your muscles? I know for myself, physically, when I'm stressed, my shoulders get exhausted because I just feel like I'm holding them in my ears, right? And so noticing those changes in your body, some people get backaches, some people get belly aches, some people get really hot, other people get really fatigued. I know some people too who get stressed and like their energy level goes up. They almost get a bit manic within the situation. They just start moving faster. Not really more effective, but simply faster. So noticing, taking some time and figuring out how do I physically change when I'm feeling distressed. Emotionally, how do my emotions change? I know for me, my fuse gets a little shorter. So that means I might get a little snappier with people. I might cry easier. I might feel just overwhelmed. I know some people who get stressed and they just get that manicky happy feeling. Some people cry a lot. There's all these changes emotionally when we get stressed, and sometimes we don't even realize something happens and I feel like I'm going to cry, and then I'm mad at myself because I feel like I have to cry, right? What I need to be doing at that time is saying to myself, what's going on? Being gentle with ourselves like we would with somebody else. Why is this so upsetting? Cognitively working back and figuring out what's going on. So cognitively, you need to be aware too of how you change. When we're really stressed, when we're in these high state emotional states, we don't make good decisions and we don't problem solve well. You know, some people say, I work great under stress. And some people do, but it's a healthy level of stress. You know, having deadlines and having responsibilities, stress can be a good motivator to get you to move towards change and goal completion. But the truth is, when the stress gets to a certain level, we cognitively shut down. It's hard to process information, it's hard to retain information, and our executive functions just lower. And so if I feel like I just can't think anymore, or I can't remember, or I'm having a hard time making decisions, I know there's probably something going on I need to deal with. Socially, many of us change when we're stressed. Some people isolate and shut down. They might feel like hiding in their bed and not getting up. Other people want to just like go out. Let's go shopping. Let's go out. You know, let's go do this, almost as an avoidance technique. And then spiritually, when we're stressed. When we talk about spirituality within recreation therapy, it can mean religion. And for some folks, they might get angry at their idea of God. They might ask for help from their God. Other people might pray more or pray less. But when we talk about spirituality in a bigger sense, spirituality is about that sense of purpose and connectedness to the whole. And so many times when we get distressed, we feel like we have a loss of purpose. We might not feel like we matter to other people or that we're doing important things or that we have a purpose. A term I like to use a lot is soul tired. You know, that tired, that it's not just I need to take a nap or just have a sandwich. I'm just worn out, right, on every level. When one of these areas of our life is out of balance, the rest will go. If physically I'm wearing myself out, pretty soon emotionally I'm tired too. And then I can't think cognitively. And then I'm losing my sense of purpose and my drive. So it's important that we stop and acknowledge that we are whole beings. We have all these aspects of ourselves. and that we take the time to care for ourselves in each of these areas. I can't just sleep good and have a good meal for it to be enough. I need to manage my emotions and my thoughts. I need to manage my social supports and my connectedness to the bigger picture, to the whole. I need to have a sense of purpose. And when our emotions are distressed, we start to chip away at these areas of our lives. So, like I said, I always like to start with awareness. If we're not aware of what's changing in our body or what's wrong, we don't know how to come in and fix it, right? We don't know when we need help unless we're more self-aware of ourselves. So once we start working on the self-awareness, and actually the breath is a great way to do that, starting your day by taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out and saying, how am I doing today? What's going on? Taking a moment to identify, why am I holding, why are my shoulders tight? What am I stressed about? Am I worried about work? Am I worried about a bill? Is there something going on with the kids? Spending those times to understand it helps us to manage it. Now, all these things we're going to talk about today are good coping skills for these distressful emotions, for this anxiety feeling. Now, coping skills do not solve problems. I can't take a walk and suddenly I come home and the bills are paid. If that were the case, I'd walk a lot more. But that's not how it works. What coping skills do is they help us to build the resilience that we need so we can be strong enough to come back and then manage the things that we have to manage. So make a plan to pay that bill or come back and get that work done. But if we're not taking the time to care for ourselves through good coping, we don't have the balance we need to be able to manage those tasks. So physical things we can do. We all know that getting moving is great. Right now with COVID, I have a lot of friends who've been very upset that they can't get to the gym because that was one thing they did. After a long day of work, they got to the gym. I want to encourage you and remind you that you don't need the gym to move. Getting out and taking a walk is great. Doing chair stretches and things at home are fantastic. I know for myself, this new environment of working at home is not real ergonomically correct for me. So I find that my shoulders and my back ache after, 8 hours on the computer. So it's even more important that we're doing some things to help stretch and move. Doing some basic chair stretches. You don't have to have equipment at your house because I know y'all have big cans of soup somewhere. We, the grocery shelves were empty of those, so I know you've got some. So really using those as resistance, as you're doing some stretching with your arms and arm raises and things like that. So you don't have to have fancy equipment to do these things. The important thing is that you're just moving. Another favorite physical activity of mine is dancing like nobody's watching. Turn on some music in the living room, play Dance Dance Revolution with the kids. Just move around as you're, doing laundry and things, and schedule these breaks in your workday. I know for myself, when I was on campus, in between my classes, I would take a walk around campus so I could be moving. And since I've been home, the first couple weeks, I was just aching, and I thought, boy, I get up in the morning and the office is here, so I start working. And then it's time for bed, and I realized I just finished working, right? A lot of us were doing, especially when the switch first happened, long days. Schedule time to get up and move, to take that walk, to do that stretching. It's important to get back to those things as we're in this new environment, and we may not have our coworkers to remind us or ask us to come take a walk. So put these things in your schedule to do. Schedule your time to take care of yourself and make it as important as all the things you schedule to do for everybody else. Progressive muscle relaxation is a great physical way to manage our self-care and to help relieve some of that stress and tension. Progressive muscle relaxation is the process of adding tension to the muscle group and relaxing it. You move through the body system. I like to go head to toe or toe to head because it just makes sure that I remember everything along the way. If you've never done it before, there are a lot of great resources online right now through YouTube and other such platforms that will talk you through a progressive muscle relaxation exercise. But even if you're just laying in your bed and you don't have your phone handy, just going through and starting, let's say, with your toes, and go slowly through each one. And as you breathe in, like tensing up your toes, holding all the tension in your toes. And as you breathe out, relax and tell yourself, I'm relaxing, I'm releasing, I'm softening. And then do that area again, scrunch up your toes as you breathe in, and then as you breathe out, relax and release and let go of that tension. Move all the way up through your body, and you'll be amazed that by the time you get to your head, you feel like jelly. It's a great way to manage some of that physical tension that we're holding in our body when we're distressed. Other physical ways to manage: organize your space. You know, we sometimes forget how much our physical environment really does impact our health and wellness and the way we feel. I know when I brought my office kind of home and set up at my kitchen table, I realized I was just kind of surrounded by things. And so taking the time to put things in folders, getting a system of organization back helps the environment to feel less chaotic. And then that translates to me feeling less emotionally chaotic. So doing those things with your physical environment are important. Healthy snacks, healthy eating is important as well to manage that physical stress. We oftentimes go to those unhealthy snacks when we're distressed because we feel like we've earned it, right? Like it's been a bad day, let's eat a pizza. And pizza's phenomenal. But you know, one of the things we find is when we eat those unhealthy things and we're treating our body that way, that we start to feel heavier because we're not getting the nutrients we need. We're eating those empty calories. Sometimes we have regret and remorse, which just adds to the stress. So actually being conscious of what are we eating, planning those meals so we can feel good about it and we can give our body what we need. Because when we're in those state of stress, of distress, our nutrients and things are getting sapped from our body. That's why our immune system goes down. So it's important that, especially in those times of high stress, that we are taking times to make sure we're adding in those fruits and veggies and those things that are good for our physical self. Plant a garden. It's a great kick right now that everybody's on, and I love it. And I'm hoping everybody kind of sticks with it. Even if you're in an apartment or you just have a small space, container gardening is a great option. You don't have to have a big yard and a lot of space to do it. There's a lot of very creative and low cost ways to start a garden. And seeds are cheap. And plants are cheap. You know, the farmer's market, you can buy tomato plants for $1. And what a great return you get from those. So it's not only a great physical activity, but it gets you outside in the air. It gives you something to care for every day. And the reward at the end of the season is really great. Good self-care and hygiene. Now, it might sound silly, but we do tend to, when we're in spaces of distress, not really care for ourselves as much. Now, you might get up and still take a shower every day and get dressed, but you know, considering when's the last time I just did something nice for myself, like sit down and paint my nails, you know, sat and soaked your feet for a little bit. You know, you may not be able to get out for a pedicure, but what kind of things can you do for yourself at home to take care of yourself and feel a bit pampered? One of the things we do a lot at work is hand massage. Just getting some good smelling lotion and spending 10 minutes giving yourself a nice hand massage is a wonderful way to distress and just treat yourself and to feel good. It's a great sensory experience because we got the good smelling lotion. It's a great tactile experience. And it gives yourself that quiet time and that emotional release to just be quiet and be with yourself. If you have a significant other, giving each other hand massages is a really nice way to just slow down and reconnect with each other as well. So there's lots of physical ways we can take care of ourselves. So find what really matters to you. And for some of us, it's been a long time since we did some of these things. We get very busy in adulthood, right? We're working and taking care of other people, and we forget to do those things that used to just bring us joy. So I want you to spend some of this time considering, you know, what is it that I used to like to do? You know, before I was a professional, before I was a parent, when I had more time, and figure out how you move those things back in to your life. I know I used to love to do yoga. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. And so I do stretching instead. So some of those things we have to modify. I can't do full yoga because my hips yell, but I can do lots of good stretching and modified yoga or chair yoga poses that feel really great. So taking that time and again, putting it on your schedule so that you do it every day. Emotionally. So there's lots of ways to express ourselves emotionally. And again, sometimes we just don't take the time. So pets are a great thing. They're great supports. You don't have to have a certified therapy dog. You may not even be able to have a pet like in your space, but even having fish, someone else that you're caring for oftentimes helps us to feel more purposeful in our day when you have that somebody who gives you that unconditional positive regard. And if you've never had a goldfish, let me tell you, you go anywhere near that bowl, they're so excited to see you. They're at the top waiting for food. It makes you feel awful important, right? So it doesn't have to be a dog because not everybody can have a dog in the space they live in. So, having a pet is a great way to get that unconditional positive regard that maybe you're not getting in other places in your life, and helps to build that emotional resilience. Creative activities and artistic activities. Now, this is not that you have to paint a masterpiece. This is about you simply expressing yourself. So picking up a pad of paper and writing some poetry or sketching, dancing, cooking. I love to bake, and I find that's my kind of creative expression, and it feels great when it's done. It builds my self-esteem because I've completed it and I feel good. It tastes delicious. And then I deliver it to friends so I don't eat it all, which feels nice too. So finding those ways that we creatively can express ourselves helps us to kind of manage some of those emotions and sort through them. Our emotions don't come into our brains just as simple words, they come in as pictures. And so finding a way to tease through that, because there's too many times when someone says, "What's going on? What are you feeling?" Or maybe even ask yourself and you're like, "I just don't know. I can't come up with the word." So these processes can really help us. And some people do it through drawing or creating music. Other people sit and journal. The important thing is when we're engaging in these types of creative expressions is it has to be no judgment. So you're not critiquing your painting for what's right or wrong. It's always right because it's yours. When you're writing in your journal, you're not thinking about spelling and punctuation. You just express yourself on paper. You get it down. Some people journal in paragraphs, some people write lists, and some people draw and do a combination of all those things. It's all great because it's a great way to express and to identify our emotions. Putting yourself in spaces that are beautiful can help us emotionally too. And being that right now, like we can't get out to art museums or gardens, doing some of these virtual tours has actually been one of the gifts I think that has come out of quarantine. The fact that, museums around the world that I would probably never have an opportunity to visit, all of a sudden have opened their doors to me through virtual tours. Visiting zoos or botanical gardens virtually. It's a great way to kind of get out and experience the emotion that others have put out with their creative work too, and help you identify how you're feeling. Going on a virtual tour of a museum and saying, "I'm going to find something that describes my day and how where I am in my headspace right now." And spending some time to explore that with yourself. Like, why did I pick that picture? Why is that describing me? Is it the colors? Is it the imagery? And helping you to better understand your emotional state. I've been doing a lot of the free online concerts. There's famous musicians and then local artists who are offering a lot of free music right now, live music. So, when you're working, putting on that music in the background helps to bring up your emotional state and manage some of that stress. While I'm cooking dinner or cleaning, having some music going. So finding those ways to express. Writing letters and cards to someone. One of the things that's been really hard about this quarantine situation is that we're not having that chance to sit down and kind of express ourselves to others. And so if you feel like you're struggling with that, find a new pen pal. call one of your friends and say, hey, let's be pen pals right now. I'm going to send you a letter and I want you to send me letters back, and start writing and talking about things. It can even be someone within your own house. I used to know a couple that had a hard time disagreeing or fighting. And so they decided to start, when they had really tough emotional stuff to talk about, that they wrote to each other. And so they'd write letters to each other back and forth to be able to explore those topics that maybe they were having a hard time verbally exploring with each other. And it really helped them in their marriage and to be able to manage those difficult emotions. It's a great thing to do with teenagers too, because oftentimes teenagers have a hard time putting those things in words directly when you're having a conversation. It allows you to slow down and think about it at a space and time that's more comfortable for you, and express yourself. Treat yourself. I don't know if there's any Parks and Rec fans out there, but one of my favorite episodes is always when they do the treat yourself. So I want you to keep in mind, crazy spending is not the goal here, as they did on Parks and Rec. Sometimes it's just having a hot cup of coffee. Sometimes when I get really overwhelmed here at work and things are busy and the students are demanding and I'm stressed out, I take a hot cup of coffee, I go sit outside for a few minutes, and I just enjoy the breeze, the fresh air, and just take a moment for myself. It can be those little things where we treat ourselves. A hot cup of tea, a nice quiet walk all by ourselves in the park. It doesn't have to be spending your money. It can be just taking good care of yourself. So make sure you're treating yourself every day. A hot shower, a nice bath, whatever it is, but just be mindfully aware of it so you can really tune into it and enjoy the process. Guided imagery is another really nice way to sort through emotions. Again, if you've never done this process, there are a lot of great guided imagery resources through YouTube and things right now, where you can find a script that works for you. Guided imagery is about taking a mental vacation. Our mind is a very powerful tool. And when we can learn to harness that power, we really can give ourselves these great mental breaks. So whenever I do guided imagery, I always picture myself in Zion Canyon. Years ago, I took a vacation out there, and it was the most breathtaking scene I've ever been in. The red rocks, the beautiful expansive sky, and we took a hike, and there was a point just below Angel's Landing. I was too scared to go up to Angel's Landing, where we stopped and just looked out over the canyon, and it was amazing. So when I'm having a bad day at work, I close my eyes in my office, take a couple deep breaths, and I put myself on the edge of that canyon up there. And I go through my senses and imagine myself there. And I stop and say, what does it feel like here? And I imagine the sun on my skin and the breeze blowing off, onto my skin. I imagine what it smells like. I remember that fresh air. What does it feel like? I remember the warm rocks and the warm sun. What was I seeing? What did it look like? The blue sky was amazing and the red rocks were gorgeous. What did I hear? And I remember the sound of wildlife and nature and the birds and the wind in the trees. And I spend just a few minutes moving myself through that space and time, giving myself that little break just to relax enough so I can get back. Guided imagery is a great thing to do before bed if you have a hard time falling asleep. And you can do it yourself inside your own head quietly, or using one of those scripts is great too. You can put yourself anywhere, on a beach, in a canyon, and it's amazing how well it works. I always tell people, if you're a little skeptical, if you think about, if you've ever had like a really good meal and you've been nice and full, and then someone brings a beautiful dessert out and all of a sudden you're like, I'm kind of hungry, I think I could eat. Our brain tells us what we want, right? It makes that perception reality. And I might be physically full, but all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'm really not that full though. Our brain has made a decision for us. Harnessing that in a healthy way, like saying, I'm going to take a little break now. I may not be able to vacation and get to a spa, but I'm going to put myself in a spa-like setting in my mind. I'm going to imagine those sensations. I'm going to go through my senses, and I'm going to bring myself to a calm place and take some good care of myself for a moment. So using your mind in that great way. Gratitude is another great way to manage our emotions. Even in the thick of it, there's always something to be grateful for. And so sometimes when we're really struggling, starting to make some lists in our head of what's going right, what we're grateful for. So I might be stressed and have a lot of work, but I'm so thankful I have a job. It might be raining outside and I can't go out and do what I wanted to do. And rather than being upset about that, I can be grateful that I have a roof over my head, so I'm not outside in that rain right now. So reframing those things, which brings us to cognitive. Managing our thoughts and our awareness are so important for our overall health. I'm going to start with self-talk because I think it's one of the foundations. We say things in our own head that we would never say to anyone else. And of all the hundreds and thousands of people I've met in my lifetime so far, I never met anybody who said, I never talk mean to myself in my own head when we have these conversations. For some reason, we humans are just wired to be pretty harsh to ourselves. Even really functional people do it. We never feel quite good enough. We make one mistake and we ruminate on it. So I want you to start managing your self-talk, especially in times of distress. Notice, how do you talk to yourself? Because if you're saying a bunch of negative things inside your own head, you're chipping away at your resiliency and making it harder for you to do well and find yourself a way out. So even if you have to stop the thought for a moment by saying, I'm trying and I'm doing my best, if that's all you got, that's okay. But if you can say something better, people will say like, oh, I always screw things up. And the truth is, no one always does anything, right? And so stopping and naming 3 things that you've actually been successful at, tell yourself that. Finding a way to do some cognitive reframing of those thoughts is really important for us to manage that negative energy we have going on inside our own head. Mindful awareness. I don't know how many of you practice mindfulness, but it's a keystone, I have to say, to my wellness. Just being mindfully aware. Some people do tie mindfulness to Buddhism, which is fine, but it doesn't have to be tied to a religious practice. Mindfulness is a process of just being aware and engaged in every day. I like food, so a lot of my examples around food. I apologize. Hopefully you guys like food too. But an example I like to give is, you've had those days where you're really hungry and it's been a tough day at work, so you order a pizza from your favorite pizza place and you're so excited for it to get there, right? You can't wait for that pizza to get here. It comes through the door, it smells amazing, and you realize like 5 minutes later you've eaten like 6 slices of pizza and you don't remember tasting them, right? We oftentimes move through our day and we're not really mindfully present in what we're doing or how we're doing it, which means we're missing the joy in it and the opportunity to just live in that moment. So next time you order that phenomenal pizza or whatever it is you enjoy, stopping and taking a deep breath and taking a bite and enjoying it. When you practice actually mindful eating, you find that you eat less because you're more satisfied, because you're actually taking the time to enjoy it and taste it. So you don't feel like, well, I'm not satisfied yet because you weren't really present while you ate it. Or vacation is another good example I like to use for this. We've all been excited to go on a vacation, spend time with the people we love. We have this great plan. We're anxious about getting there. And then we get there and we start being anxious about following the schedule and we start counting down. This is so wonderful. I can't believe we only can be here 5 days. Oh my goodness, we only have 3 days left and I'm going to have to be back to work. And you spend all this time kind of anticipating the future that you never just stop and be present there in that vacation and enjoy that moment. So practicing mindfulness is a great way to slow down that mind and be positively present in your day, which also helps our emotional state and things as well. Challenge your mind as well as relax your mind. So for some of us, we have very stimulating jobs, very demanding kind of requirements between our family and everything going on. So we may need to do some things to relax our mind, where maybe we do spend just some time watching a funny movie and relaxing and slowing down. Other of us might be in quarantine and might feel like we're not being cognitively challenged. So finding ways to challenge your mind is a great way to build that sharpness and that resiliency. It's interesting. I heard the other day on NPR that there's been a big boom in reading the classics. People are downloading them online and on, electronic sources and things. And there's been this boom bigger than they've seen. And I think it's because people are getting back to things like reading to spend their time. So finding those things, if it's puzzles, if it's reading, if it's taking an online class, the way a lot of universities are doing free online courses. So you can go take that statistics course you've been dying to take for years, right? Or whatever it is you're interested in learning about. Grounding techniques are a way of using our senses or other faculties to bring ourselves back to the moment. So if you are starting to feel anxious, it's about getting ourselves back to the present and out of that headspace. So a really nice grounding technique that a lot of my patients use is using their senses. And again, don't get caught up in the numbers. If you read about this, they'll say, do one thing you taste, two things you feel, three things you hear. Just go through your senses, especially if you're in a state of distress, trying to figure out, am I supposed to do one of this or two of that? Doesn't matter. But what I want you to do is just walk through your senses. What do I see right now? Name 5 things I see. Name 4 things I hear. What are 3 things I can touch? What are 2 things I smell? And what's something I taste? Some people will do grounding simply by putting a mint in their mouth or a sour piece of candy to slow down that feeling of anxiety and stress, because again, it brings them back to the moment. You put that piece of mint in your mouth, you take a deep breath in, a deep breath out, you can smell the mint, you can taste the mint, and it brings you back to the here and now. I knew one person who would take off their shoes when they were feeling anxious, so they could put their feet flat on the ground and physically be grounded on that ground and feel the sturdiness of the earth underneath them to help them to feel safe and secure. So cognitively grounding techniques can be a really great place to get back to the here and now. And then finally, for cognitive ways, mantras. I don't know if you remember Ally McBeal, like she had a theme song, which was kind of like a mantra. You can have a theme song or just a statement that you have. I used to work with a woman when she got stressed, she'd say out loud, I'm at peace with myself and the world around me. I'm at peace with myself and the world around me. And the more hostile that sounded, we knew how angry she was. And we'd wait till it came down a little bit till she actually did sound like she was at peace with herself and the world around her. Some people use Bible quotes, some people use sayings, but finding something that you can kind of repeat in your head. Some people just say, I got this, I got this. But finding something positive that you can repeat inside your own head to get yourself back to a good space to where you're feeling safe and secure. Mantras are great. Again, there's hundreds of mantras online if you want to kind of find one that speaks to you. I encourage people to, post those mantras around your house. Post-it notes are great because that way you can change them out too. Post in a "you got this" on your mirror. So when you brush your teeth in the morning before a big interview or a big assignment, that you're reminding yourself, giving yourself a positive message that you got this is a great way to remind you on those things. Socially, I think we've all realized the benefits of our social lives with this quarantine. So if we are lucky enough to be sheltering in place, game nights and things with the family are great. But there's a lot of great way we can do this virtually. There's been several platforms that have popped up where you can play card games with people in 4 different locations. Even if you don't want to be sophisticated like that, if you've all got some dice, everybody can zoom in on a meeting and roll their own dice for Yahtzee or Bunko. So being creative with those kind of ideas too, to have fun game nights are great. Zoom is perfect for charades. You don't have to be in the same room to do Pictionary. So things like that you can get really creative and do, and it brings us back to those great social interactions. When we have those game nights, we not only just have fun and play games, but we strengthen communication and relationships because we're all just playing together. So I highly encourage them. Virtual movie nights. A lot of my students are doing this. I have students who are in sororities, and one of the things they used to do is have Netflix nights where they pick a movie and watch it. And so when quarantine started, they started doing online Netflix nights. They all video conference with each other and they all just watch the movie, at their own home. So that way they can talk to each other through the movie and in big scenes and things like that. So virtual movie nights are fun. Our governor talked about the daily 5 check-in. Aw, there's your dog. Making a list every day and checking off that you've checked in with 5 different people is really great. It can be through email, it can be through a phone call, it can be through a Zoom meeting. But if you haven't talked to 5 people today, then you need to get social and reach out to some people. It's important. It's really easy in times of distress to shut down and isolate. And so if I'm holding myself accountable to check in with 5 people every day and I realize it's been a couple days since I haven't done that, then that's a warning sign that my isolation is kicking in and I got to manage my stress. So I need to start by having a Zoom meeting, writing to my pen pal, sending that email or something like that. Social media. I want you to be careful of social media, right? We know it can be great and it can be a great way to interact, but it also can be a way to agitate us more or just to make us feel more hopeless. So make sure that you're using social media in a way that really does build your emotional state, especially in these high tense emotional times. So maybe Zooming with friends versus like going on Facebook and going through the feed, because there's a lot of information there that can be distressing, to say the least. Lastly, we're back to that last part of ourselves and our spiritual self. So ways to manage yourself spiritually. So if you are a religious person, taking part in those virtual, I know a lot of churches are doing car services, and phenomenal ideas. So you can stay engaged with your congregation, with your people, doing online discussion groups, and this could be related to your religion, or just other hopeful, purposeful topics. Maybe you're a volunteer with the Humane Society. So staying in touch with those other volunteers, that sense of community is so important at this time. Journaling, expressing our feelings, but also reaching out and offering support to others. So we can do this in ways that help remind us of our purpose. Many of us, especially at the university, spend our day serving others. And so when we get locked in our house and we cannot serve other people, we do tend to feel a little hopeless. So finding ways that you can reach out and help other people and offer that support. Setting goals for yourself and checking them off when you meet them is a good way to stay purposely driven. Media fast. Again, same with social media. Be careful of the news. I don't want anyone to be ignorant of what's going on in the world, but if we're watching the news a lot more than usual, we might find that we're feeling more distressed. So making sure we're managing that time. Getting yourself outside, for a lot of us, just leaving our house and getting out into nature, just walking around the neighborhood, things like that can be great. And there's been a lot of things like through the Metro Park, they have virtual scavenger hunts you can do in your neighborhood and things like that. It helps to lift our spirits and make us feel better. And then I'm coming right back to the self-care. We have to take good care of ourselves so that we can be strong enough and feel purposeful and driven and take care of others. So making sure you're practicing those things. All right. So I know I sped through some of that stuff. I wanted to make sure we got through everything. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I also wanted to make sure I gave you my email. If you ever want to reach out and talk about any of these areas more specifically, I know you're all on campus. If you ever want to have a focused kind of discussion with any of your work groups, if there's anything I can come and do to help support you guys, I'd love to do that. But the important thing is that you leave with the message of please take care of yourself. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Hallie.
You are welcome. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and take the slides down. I'll put my email in the chat section just in case anyone still needs it. If I can figure it, there we go.